without further ado, yeah, let's get right to updating our tier list here. So it's been a bit. I think the last time we did our update was in July. I played a couple Metroidvanias since the last update. Primarily a couple of ones that I wasn't satisfied with. But we'll also be moving around a couple of the games I've played here because I do have a slightly updated sentiment around some of them now that I've experienced a couple other ones that are a bit mediocre. But yeah, with that out of the way. So first of all, we can go in order of the games that I tried out. So first that would be Rusted Moss. Rusted Moss is an interesting one. Actually, it's so interesting that I made a command for it just now. If you want to see the review that I did on Rusted Moss, feel free to check the Steam review. Nightbot should give it shortly. But basically, you know, and you can see it here as well. Basically, I feel like the game just doesn't work well in synthesizing the Metroidvania and like grappling elements. And I'll go in more detail of it right now for those of you unaware. Of course, you can read that review anytime you want. But to summarize, I did not finish this game. I don't plan on finishing the game. It was a really big struggle to get through it. I feel like actually the biggest problem the game has is the just basic controls. It's a game that kind of pushes you towards playing on keyboard and mouse, and already I don't think that's a good sign, to be honest. I do feel like the default controls for keyboard are a bit strange. W is not actually associated with any action despite the game telling you you move with WASD. Crouching has a bit of slipperiness and rigidity when you try to combine it with like walking forward and such, and I think the walk forward itself is a bit too slippery, as in like it's pretty fast. And for a game whose central gimmick is a grappling hook, like grappling beam or whatever you want to call it, grappling rope, I feel like having the slippery movement is not really a good sign, because you know, theoretically with the grappling hook it's supposed to allow for precise but careful and controlled jumps and just swing action in general, right? But I actually feel like Rusted Moss focuses more on like the ability to use the grappling hook to generate speed and then maintain that speed as you traverse along, like with bunny hops, with using shotguns and the other weapons you collect along the way to manipulate your momentum and do it that way. And in terms of just like the mechanics themselves, like what's possible in the game, it's definitely very cool. But I feel like when it actually like is brought together in the context of this very game, a Metroidvania for that matter, doesn't really feel well integrated. It feels extremely contrived, and I think that's actually a big knock against it. Hey, what's up, Bravo? Thank you. Oh yeah, we will have fun with Bleach the Third Phantom, hopefully. It'll be interesting, but I hope you're doing well. Just giving a quick update to the Metroidvania tier list first. But yeah, Rusted Moss. So again, not going to give too much detail. I already gave a good amount of detail in the review, but that's like the main gripe I have with the game. And the controls being poor on keyboard and even worse on controller for a game that is also on Switch and some other console platforms, I think is a big miss for me. I know some people were able to make the controls work, but I actually feel like the controls are a detriment to how like how the game presents itself, pretty much. Like, you would expect a game like this to have a lot of like grappling focus, but the reality is that the levels don't really require any sophistication in how you leverage the grappling hook. It's like a basic swing, and then you make yourself like drop onto a specific side of the platform so you don't fall into the you know, empty abyss, however you want to call it, the pit of damage. It's not instant death in this game, so I don't want to call it instant death pit, but you get what I mean. There's also like ways to use that, like basically the way the grappling hook is, it's very stringy, it's very bouncy, it's very elastic. So just by jumping down and leveraging gravity and then using the grappling hook to attach to the surface, you can use that to like immediately get some pretty strong height. But again, in the level design itself, not very well leveraged. And it's a Metroidvania, right? You wouldn't expect it to be like leveraged to an extreme degree, because your focus should be on exploring and not trying to manage the unwieldy controls of the grappling hook that the game has. And for that matter, the Metroidvania progression is just, it's just a big miss for me. One of the first abilities you get, besides of course the grappling hook, which is the first progression you get, is the charge jump. And the charge jump requires you to hold crouch on a specific terrain in order to charge up. And if you release crouch, you lose the charge that you built up. And in order to actually make use of the charge jump for the stronger boost in height, you have to hold down the jump button still. Like, it's so silly. The way they just decided to implement the controls around all of that, I really don't understand. And they simultaneously have actually very little required of the player with regards to like the grappling and all the complicated things they implemented. Like, I don't know why they took the steps to do that. I get they wanted to make the game like accessible and stuff, but I feel like that actually ended up letting them down on all the work that they put into like the grappling itself. So yeah, and beyond that, there's a lot of gauntlets in this game. It's kind of crazy how like Silksong opened my eyes to how many of these other games have just like unnecessarily gauntlets. And Afterimage is guilty of it as well, but not to like the same extreme degree that I think Silksong itself has, or even other games. But Rust and Moss definitely suffers from it quite a bit. And a lot of the gauntlets as well are like just extremely silly. Like there's like, you know, some pit of like water that if you stay in too long then you die. And then there's like a bunch of enemies that fly all over the place. And this game doesn't have contact damage, mind you. But because it doesn't have contact damage, it actually feels like a little too silly for me personally. Like, it doesn't really, not only does it not feel threatening, but also just feels like they just had to like put some combat engagement in the game just to fulfill a checkbox for a Metroidvania. I don't know. And the enemies themselves are very rudimentary. There's like a couple enemies in a particular area that are extremely annoying in how they follow you. And it seems expected that you're not supposed to kill them because there's like literally no way to like properly damage them or something. And they seem to also just outrun you because they build up speed when they go in the same direction. It's kind of weird, but yeah, the enemy design is like yikes. The bosses in the game, especially one particular boss at a certain point in the game, oh my goodness, literally it's a mini game. You have to run away from the boss. Ah man, I wish I had the clip right now. Let me see if I have the clip. It might show File Explorer, so apologize. But let me see if I have the clip still on my PC. Oh, this boss, man. Just thinking about it tilts me. Let's see. I have to mute the audio though. Where do we find audio? There we go. Yeah, let's see. This boss is so frustrating. You basically have to shoot like these hearts, and that's how you deal damage to the boss. And while you're shooting the hearts, the boss is like chasing you down. And in phase 2, it like builds up speed really fast. And you can see it's also firing these like projectile stuff, like whatever, right? But later on, it also shoots like a beam that it charges up and then fires in a line of sight. Yeah, there we go. You saw it there. I got hit by it. It's just so awkward for this game's controls to have to dodge around. Like, it's definitely not infeasible, or however the word is. But it's not even really a boss fight. It's just like a Mario Party minigame, dude, where you have to shoot the hearts and run away from the boss. And then down here is like not death pit, but like damage pit, we'll call it. But yeah, let me see. Did I have a phase 2 clip? The health bar looks different in phase 2, so I'm trying to see if I got there in this video. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, phase 2, it like chases after you super fast. And it's so tilting, dude. Like, I'm sure people that are really skilled with the movement can make it work. But again, I just don't feel like the controls actually make sense for this kind of game. Like, they really shouldn't have had, because this game, when you play on controller, is a twin stick, basically. Like, you have to use the analog to aim. But if you don't have the analog like tilted in a certain direction, it snaps back to like a default position. So you have to constantly be moving around the analog stick to like aim where you want to go, instead of like it being like a proper cursor, if that makes sense. And for a game like this, which is also a Metroidvania, it's just like a little too much. Like, you got to really focus on one thing that makes your game good and let the other things just fall into place, rather than like having all these things that you want to try to incorporate all at once. And it just takes away the player's focus from important things in Metroidvania, such as exploring, right? But yeah, you guys can get a sense of how the game plays from this short clip. But anyway, yeah, I'm not gonna finish this game. So that's why I'm not ranking it. But if I did finish it, I would definitely rank it here. Okay, probably, yeah. I think it is worse than Servants of the Dark. Like some good points about the game. I don't want to be overly negative. It does have good quality of life, relatively speaking. I say relatively speaking because, you know, quality of life is relative. There's a lot of games with extremely questionable features implemented, and I still have yet to find a real game that just does it perfectly. But obviously, perfection is something we only strive for and is not something that actually exists, right? So, but yeah, this game has like saving when you just like walk up to a save point and you have to just press crouch to save, and it's nice because you don't have to go through any menus for that. But it doesn't have fast travel through the save points. There's separate fast travel points, unfortunately, and they're not very frequent. But the save points themselves are frequent enough where it makes up for it, and it's very generous with the save point placement. Like you do like one like slightly involved like parkour section, like not really that involved, but it's just like a couple swings through like some open pits or whatever, and boom, save point next room. Save point before every boss. I've never had any like long backtracks in this game up to the point I played, which is about like 7 or 8 hours. Also, this game has like charms. It has literally Hollow Knight charms, and they're kind of pointless, but to be fair, most of them do offer slight gameplay improvements. I don't know, like I kind of didn't bother with it after a while, but I'll give it that, I guess. Annoying thing about this game, just when I'm trying to be positive, annoying thing about this game is that the money scatters all over the place when you kill enemies. But thankfully, you don't really need money for much of anything. Like literally, you go to the shop and you can buy out everything immediately if you're just playing the game normally. So it's not a big deal, but it's just kind of pointless again. And they do have the magnet charm, so yeah, yikes. Again, the combat is not great to begin with. A positive thing about this game, the weapons are all really cool. Especially the shotgun. I think once you get the shotgun, the game actually becomes pretty sick, like movement-wise. Just in a vacuum, the movement becomes really cool. Because you can use it to, like, again, change the momentum and stuff. And also when you have the grenades, you can use that damage boost in midair and reset your grapple hook. Which, by the way, I didn't mention, but you can only shoot the grapple hook once per jump, which that extremely frustrated me. Again, you have to check the review for those kind of details, but I was incredibly annoyed with that. I feel like a game like this should allow you to shoot the grapple hook more than once in the air, but alas. But yeah, overall, that's how I feel. I'm not going to finish. All right, then we have BLADECHIMERA. This game is not really a Metroidvania, to be honest. If anything, it's more so like Castlevania inspired, and it has a lot of Castlevania isms. But in terms of the way the game flows, it's not really a Metroidvania. It is 100% linear. Literally every progression ability you get, there's not even progression abilities, to be honest. It's just like you defeat like a major boss, major roadblock, or you get through like a major section, and you get like the security clearance to go to the next section. And it's point A to point B to point C to point D, and then you beat the game. Very, very much not a Metroidvania in that regard. However, the map is laid out like a Metroidvania, so I'll give it that. It's not really a maze, but it does have the clear inspirations there. So, you know, it has some sort of pseudo Metroidvania exploration, I guess. The way you get quote-unquote progression abilities, they're not really progression abilities, but the way you get them is from leveling up inside your talent tree, basically. And as you get levels, you get more skill points. You apply those skill points to quality of life features and to progression abilities. So you get like double jump, you get fast travel between not just save points, but literally any point on the map. As long as it's square on the map, you can fast travel to it, as long as you've been there before, and as long as it wasn't the most recently visited square, or room or whatever, something like that. And also as long as it's not in a zone where you cannot fast travel between. Like, it probably has the best fast travel I've seen in a Metroidvania game, almost to a fault. I kind of feel like the fast travel implementation does kind of get to that side of the spectrum where it's removing from the immersion a little bit. And also it's unlocked in the skill tree, which is pretty questionable. but again, you can get it pretty early on into the game. But that type of thing, I don't think should be on a skill tree at all. If you're gonna have that kind of great fast travel, it might as well be something that the player just automatically gets. But for what it's worth, definitely above average in the fast travel implementation. And for that matter, the save points are pretty well distributed. No issues with that at all. There's always a save point before a boss. There's always a save point before a nasty section and after a nasty section. The save points save when you walk near them rather than, or like when you walk by them, rather than having to go through a menu or whatever. That type of thing. This game doesn't autosave anywhere. Neither does Rusted Moss, actually. I forgot to mention that, but Rusted Moss doesn't autosave either. This game doesn't autosave, so if you die, you lose progress since the last time you saved, which is fine. Perfectly fine for a game like this. Again, when your game is designed around that conscious choice that the developer implements, then it works out perfectly well. And it still gives the player the option of when they want to save, because you can literally fast travel back to a save point from anywhere whenever you want. And then you can go back to the point that you were exploring from right away. Well, not literally the point you explored from, because you can't fast travel to the most recently visited room. But you can go to a room just before it and you'll be fine. The combat is very cool in this game. Very fast-paced. The enemies are a little bit soaky, but you can kill them really fast. Basically, the way the combat works is you have your character's weapons, and then you have your Lux sword. It's like a magical sword, pretty much, that is super busted. Does all the handiwork you need in combat, to be honest. Basically, it absorbs projectiles, and after you... So, like, while it's out, it absorbs projectiles, and after it returns to you when you send it out or when you plant it into the ground or whatever, then it refunds your health based on how much damage it absorbed, which is super cool. And you can give it more abilities along the way from the skill tree, and it makes it extremely powerful. Definitely a power fantasy kind of game. And similarly, when you're using your main character's weapons, you generate mana, and after you spun up the meter that it's like a rev meter, I guess. But anyway, you spun it up enough, you wait a little bit, then you refund the mana based on how much damage you dealt during that time frame. And the magical sword costs mana to use, but refunds your health. And the regular character's weapons don't cost anything and refund your mana. So it works out very smoothly. You never really have any trouble with resource management. Almost to a fault, to be honest, because I do feel like they could have tuned it a little bit to make it more meaningful to, have to make use of your main character weapon in order to refund mana and then, get back to business with your spirit sword or your magical sword or whatever. But yeah, the combat is cool. So definitely like able to plow through enemies if you know what you're doing, and it's very easy to know what you're doing. Yeah, and again, just has the Castlevania fundamentals implemented, apart from the fact it's not really a Metroidvania, it's just kind of a linear game with some action platforming and stuff, but that's about it. There's some quirky puzzles in there, some interesting NPC interactions. For that matter, I think artistically the game is amazing. Lovely artwork, pretty cool story with some kind of... It's kind of astonishing plot twist in it that still catch me off guard to this day, like thinking back to it. But it was a lot of fun. So as a game, I think I can rate it in high regard. But as a Metroidvania, I think it's decent. I think it's pretty much top of decent, as high as it can go. It's not a great representation of what a Metroidvania game is, but as a 2D action platformer, it's pretty solid. So I'll give it that. Definitely would recommend anyone to play it. And again, if you want to hear the full thoughts I had on it, you can visit the VODs from the blind race we did, which should be in the playlist tab somewhere. You can look for that. Alright, next is Silksong. Oh my goodness. I'm honestly surprised I finished this game, let alone played it. I didn't 100%, of course, but I got to the normal ending, which is a good share of work of its own. I think it took me like 20 hours in-game time to get there. Oh my goodness, though. So here's how I feel about this game. This is a great feeling game with terrible Metroidvania mechanics and other questionable design decisions around the Metroidvania mechanics that make the Metroidvania mechanics even worse. So that's how I feel about it. And what I mean is by like the great game feel is that the movement of the game is fantastic. Like generally one of the best movements in a Metroidvania that I've played personally. Like I would definitely put it like if it were for the movement alone, I'd definitely put it like top of the tier list, right? But we're not rating the games based on the movement alone. We're rating it as a Metroidvania. And that's where I think this game falls apart. First of all, this game has a lot of trolls. And trolls aren't inherently bad. I mean, it's a style of game you can make, and there's certain appeal to it. But I do think trolls, and for my feeling, trolls should be done in a way where it doesn't punish the player for not knowing something, or it doesn't punish the player for something that they didn't do wrong, if you guys understand what I mean. But this game does that a lot. This game is like, haha, you didn't know that this like this pit you fall into is going to be spikes at the very bottom. Oh, too bad, you take 2 damage. Like the blind jumps and all that. There's so many blind jumps where you make the jump across, you barely miss, and then you fall all the way down like the corridor, down to like the beginning of the game. Like, you know, at the beginning of the game, your character's being taken on the carriage, and then the carriage breaks, you fall down, and you know the game starts, right? There's a corridor like that that goes all the way from where you start the game from, all the way like up to like something like Blasted Steps. And if you like, okay, maybe Blasted Steps is too far up, but like somewhere around there, like it's like Shellwood or the area that's to the left of Shellwood, but whatever. Point being, you can literally fall all the way down there, from down there to the beginning of the game. And I don't know. I mean, like, are we still gonna have stuff like that? Like that in isolation could be fine. There's several games that do that honestly it's fine for. But that's because those games have good quality of life features and good like travel mechanisms. Hollow Knight's best fast travel is quitting out to main menu to go back to the last bench that you used. Like, I think that's where you gotta start noticing that, is this a really good feature that you want to double down on? Because to me, like, the quit to main menu stuff should more so be for like if you need to step away from the game and take care of something else quickly, and then pick up the game some other day or whatever, right? Also, one moment, I'm gonna load up another set of songs. But yeah, like that's what it should be for, in my opinion. But the way they've done it in Hollow Knight, they've still got the same like very sparse fast travel from the first game, but the game is even more open. Like, okay, I shouldn't say more open. It's that the world is larger, and the character's movement is more capable, but the game is still like pretty linear in the beginning until Act 2. So when you have this like nature of traveling among the different points in the map, especially in Act 2, where you can pretty much go a lot of different places, and the points of interest that you want to get to are far from the fast travel points through which you get to those places, then that's where the fast travel starts to become noticeably poor. And made even worse by the fact that you have to rely on the quit to main menu in order to actually get to places quickly from those fast travel, or get to those places quickly in order to get to the fast travels. Because usually the place you want to get to is not necessarily near a fast travel, but it's near a save point. So you just have to use a save point that's near there and then go on your exploration journey, blah, blah, blah. Quit to main menu to quickly go back, and then you use the fast travel point that's nearby to then go to the next spot. And to me, like, it's just not cohesive. Like, and that's not even like the root of the issue, to be honest. The root of the issue is that this game still has pretty sparsely located save points that honestly should have just been the fast travel points themselves, but then also has you play as like an extremely frail character that like gets hit by a gust of wind and takes 2 damage, right? Which again, that point in isolation is fine, but when you pair it with all the other gameplay elements that the game has, that's where it becomes a bit of a mess. And there's a number of trolls, there's a number of traps that can hit you out of nowhere. Yeah, you got to be cautious. Yeah, you got to be aware. Yeah, there's tension, there's friction, blah, blah, blah. But at its core, a Metroidvania game is about exploring, right? And if you're just punishing the player just for no reason while they're exploring, while they're playing the game in the way you're supposed to, it doesn't feel great. Again, I think it just rubs off on the rest of the game extremely poorly. And not to mention, the actual games or the actual moments of spectacle in the game, like the high moments where you're fighting a boss or where you're going through a gauntlet or where you're about to get a progression ability, they don't feel as like high of a spectacle of a moment as they otherwise would be. Because a lot of the progression abilities you get aren't even guarded by a boss. It's like a little platforming section, and then you stand at the like whatever it is, I guess altar, I don't know. But you stand at it, you interact with it, you get the progression ability, and then you just carry on from there. It doesn't feel like as impactful or dramatic of a moment since you just get the progression ability just from interacting. And then the bosses that actually guard like major progression are just like a boss that has a very shallow moveset or spawns enemies or, you know, doesn't really try to interact with you, just runs away, just teleports away, blah, blah, blah. It feels like they relied too much on the idea of consider the boss and the path to the boss. Also, why is it playing this? So weird. I think it's bugged. Is it bugged? Okay, there we go. But yeah, it doesn't feel. What was I saying? What was I saying? Like basically, it doesn't feel like they wanted to put as much effort in like designing the boss movesets, because a lot of the bosses either spawn enemies or they have like a boss that's like extremely basic and has like a long boss backtrack. Like, and when I say long boss backtrack, I'm not like counting the time on my watch, like, oh, this is 30 seconds, Team Cherry, give me back my 30 seconds. Okay? Yeah, boss path to the boss, thank you. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, I'm not saying like 30 seconds, I can't bear it. I'm like a TikTok child or whatever. Like, come on, anyone that dismisses my point by saying that, like, you gotta listen a little bit more closely, please. What I'm saying is that the precedent set by having the backtrack be borderline empty space with like barely any enemies or just like a small platforming thing that you have to do every time you refight the boss. And then they're like, oh, this is part of the boss. And then the boss itself is like some dumb enemy spawning thing or just has like some basic moveset where it charges at you, runs away more, summons like these, you know, these metal, well, like what are metal bells, and then runs away. Or like, yeah, it's just like the bosses themselves are not that sophisticated. And it feels like they're like robbing you from what you could get more out of from experiencing the boss. Because you have such a cool moveset when you're playing as Hornet. Like Hornet's moveset is sick. And then the boss is like just some complete basic garbage. Yeah, it just never sat right with me. Like, and then, you know, the boss ends up not guarding actual progression, but just ends up guarding the next area that you have to go to. Like, come on now. Yeah. There's a whole lot of other things I had like annoyances with the game. The fact that you have to pay for literally everything. And the people are like, oh, it's so easy to grind. Yeah, it is so easy to grind. So why don't they just give you the save points and the fast travel for free? Like, what is the point? Oh, immersion, right? Immersion. Is immersion also the reason that we have these bad bosses in the game that just spawn enemies? Immersion, right? Is immersion also the reason why the save points are deliberately sparse, but then sometimes they actually did decide to put the save point right next to the boss? Like, there's always gonna be a suspense of disbelief in a video game. We're playing a video game after all. The devs are just the ones that decide what they want to be like part of the suspense of disbelief and what they want to be like something that the player has to accept as part of the game. But I don't think the developer should ever make compromises on good features for the sake of immersion. And again, this is going to be something we'll talk about on the podcast episode too. But this was a very abridged presentation of my thoughts on Silksong, because, you know, otherwise I'm going to be here forever talking about it. I did give a decent spiel on this game after finishing playing it. I don't think the playthrough playlist is public though, so you want to find that, you'll have to ask me or join the Discord. But regardless, where do I stand with this game after all that having been said? I think it's decent. I think it is better than those two, but that's as far as I'll put it. And we are going to be ranking Hollow Knight today as well, so those of you that are like, where does Hollow Knight stand now that I played Silksong? Just you wait. But yeah, this is where I stand with Silksong. It's not disappointing, because I do think the root of the issues with this game are just extremely simplistic Metroidvania features that they could have fixed yesterday, and the game would be so much better. The double damage wouldn't feel as bad. The fact that save points are sparse and fast travel is sparse wouldn't feel as bad. You know, if they just fixed the economy, which they already fixed the economy, but again, that just goes to show, like, you know, if it's easy to get money, then they also should have just given them to you just right away. And the rental benches thing is just silly too. It's just a lot of troll knowledge checks that are just pointless. Like, ha ha ha, gotcha, ha 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 ha. It's a game about exploration, not a game about trolling. Leave the trolling in the 90s, please. But, you know, I commend them for attempting to experiment. But I don't think the things that they experimented with were necessary to experiment. But regardless, they gave it a shot, I guess. Just incredible to me. Like, this game is definitely a kind of game where it can do no wrong. People will love it to death no matter what. As long as it's Hollow Knight, basically. People will love it to death. I find that very interesting, but the devs must have waited in lines as a kid, but never got into that bumper car ride. That's the song. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Corpse running as well as in this game. Like, oh my goodness, don't get me started. Corpse running in a Metroidvania. Yeah, this game is pretty rough, but again, salvaged by an overall good moveset that the character possesses. Very fun combat options. The combat with the enemies themselves is annoying because the flying enemies are trash. They're all the same AI basically, just meant to annoy you. But the movement is sick. The combat options are sick, like the different crests and stuff, the tools as well. It's unfortunate the way they handled the currency around the tools. I do feel like it's a little bit pointless to make it cost money to like repair them when you already have a limited use per save anyway. What, just to make the player grind more and waste their time further? And there's a limit to how many shards you can carry, like what? What is the point of that? The side quests being terrible, like a lot of them are just fetch quests. Kill this enemy X number of times. One of them is progression, by the way. Don't get me started. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're done. Silksong stays there. Ender Lilies. This game deeply saddened me, I must say. Like this game, after finishing this game, I genuinely like started rethinking whether I liked Metroidvanias. Because, dude, I just constantly see all these Metroidvanias on Steam get like immense praise by people that have probably never played Castlevania or Metroid, to be fair. But they get immense praise. And I play the game myself, and I'm like, what? You know? Yeah, Ender Lilies, I think to be fair to it, it's definitely not a high production quality game, but even with regards to that, I feel like the game didn't really leverage what it did best in that regard, which is like the emotional connection, the emotional draw. And it didn't leverage that the best because I don't think the music pairs well with the gameplay. And I also don't think the idea, or I don't think the choice of not having voice acting bodes well for it either. Those things actually reflect very poorly on the gameplay experience, which would otherwise be excused due to the lack of production quality on it, production value. But I don't think I can excuse it anymore because those are the best things about the game, to be honest, other than the quality of life features, which again, brought down by their questionable choices made on the map layouts for the rooms. Yeah, again, I gave my thoughts on it yesterday. movement is rigid, combat is rigid, enemies are boring. A lot of the bosses late game are extremely silly. There's literally a boss that teleports around, invincible by the way when it teleports, spawns enemies infinitely, and throws like darts at you, and that's what the boss is. There are literally mini bosses that were more intricate than that boss, and that boss had a major progression ability guarding it. It was guarding, but yeah. Final boss barely did anything. It spawned enemies pretty often, that's for sure, and occasionally it swiped its claws at you, threw its claws into the ground. Yeah, dude, I don't know what to say. Like, and there's other parts of the game that are just a big letdown as well. I feel like the exploration was very close to being good, but just again held back by the map. The relics, which are basically charms, a lot of them are uninteresting. They're just like higher damage, higher HP, move faster, like things like that. Just not interesting. Which is why I do think Castlevania adding a drop system to its Metroidvania games was definitely one of the most genius ideas they've ever done. The drop rates are a separate issue, which, you know, let's not talk about that. The drop rates are pretty bad in Castlevania games, but that is definitely one integration that I think Igarashi has benefited from. Benefited from having integrated into every Metroidvania he's made since then. This game doesn't have any drop systems, so unfortunately, after a while, killing enemies has little incentive, especially late game where a lot of the enemies are so tanky and kill you in 2 to 3 shots. It's almost Dark Souls. Yeah, on the other hand, game's very generous with save points. Fast travel's pretty solid, allowing you just to fast travel between any save point in the game. And you can also return to any save point at any time, which is great, even during boss fights. Yeah. But unfortunately, I just don't think the game is great overall. I think Pseudo Regalia was honestly more fun. Like, the thing with Endless is that I'd never go back to this game ever. The game feel is just way off, and it's not the kind of game I would play. But I also would never go back to Servants of the Dark, so it's tough. I guess I'll do that. Yeah, that's where I stand. It's just unfortunate. I know we ranked like 4 games that I didn't like, but that is the state of K-Drive with Metroidvanias right now that I've played recently. It's just unfortunate. Igarashi, save me with a Scarlet Engagement, please. Pretty please. We're not done here yet though. One more game to reevaluate. Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight was a game I did finish up on stream and wanted to do more of, but after getting to the normal ending, I kind of felt like exhaustion from it, like just disappointment as well from not having liked it. After like letting my thoughts settle a little more, I think I understand how I feel about the game. I still don't like it. That's how I feel about the game. I still don't like it. However, especially after having played Silksong, I do see Hollow Knight's issues more clearly. And I think one of the biggest issues with the game is just pacing. The pacing is very poor. There's no reason why you shouldn't just start with the dash. A lot of the early game is just padding in terms of the amount of time it takes for any real progress to be made. You're kind of just exploring aimlessly. The other thing I realized I think Silksong did much better than Hollow Knight is having an NPC that actually speaks, like actually interacts with the other NPCs. I said NPC. Having a player character that interacts with NPCs and speaks. Hollow Knight is just a mute protagonist, and I think it loses a lot of personality for me. I don't really feel any drive or motivation to understand the world through the lens of the character I'm playing. Whereas with Hornet, I'm like, all right, like, you know, at least it's clear to me what I need to do. You know, I'm trying to get to like the summit of the world. You know, I'm trying to meet face to face with Grandmother Silk kind of thing. Whereas Hollow Knight, you're just kind of like aimlessly exploring. You know, so I think that was a big letdown for sure. However, I do think for Hollow Knight, the big enjoyment factor for me was definitely the platforming after doing White Palace. Yeah, the platforming is fun. And it just made me realize this game really just should have been a platformer instead of a Metroidvania. The Metroidvania elements aren't necessarily that bad compared to the other stuff I've played, but I don't think it's done the game any favors to have stuff like, oh, you gotta find the map guy in every new area. Oh, the map doesn't actually uncover until you hit a save point. Oh, you have to buy the map. You have to buy the quality of life features. You have to corpse run when you die. The best fast travel in the game is quitting out. That kind of thing, right? Like these are all like just not good Metroidvania features, right? And I think other Metroidvanias that came after have definitely suffered from the Hollow Knight syndrome, where this game was so successful that everyone wants to copy it and don't understand what to copy, unfortunately. The Hollow Knight devs don't understand the copy either, clearly, because they double down on very puzzling things. But I digress. Regardless, where I stand with this game, I would rather play Silksong over Hollow Knight. However, I do think Hollow Knight is like right about there. Right about there. And I know people are going to be like, oh, do you think Silksong is better than Hollow Knight? Why do you put Hollow Knight above it? To be honest, I don't know. It's just a feeling. Just a feeling. I feel like Silksong was just frustrating for no reason. Like just trolling you for no reason. Hollow Knight's not troll. Hollow Knight just has like some like poorly implemented features, but it's not like troll in that way. I guess one area is, which is a deep nest, but yeah, that's like its own problem too. Like just no save points and no vision, right? But Hollow Knight's like a nice chill experience overall. And I think the exploration in Hollow Knight's much better because the game is more open, whereas Silksong is pretty linear. Which I think having a linear game with the bad features that Team Cherry seem to enjoy in their Metroidvanias makes the exploration even worse. Whereas if your game is more open, you can kind of get away with those things a little bit more because you know that players can take different paths and still make progress. Whereas in Silksong, like you have to go to this place to get progression. You have to go to this place to get progression, blah, blah. And they deceive you because there's so many dead ends that are far along a path in Silksong, especially early game. And some of those dead ends literally take you right back to the beginning, as I mentioned with the corridor, the famous troll blind jumps. And I assure you, most people are not going to manually backtrack to where they were. They're just going to quit out to the last few save point. And that to me is a design flaw. Conscious design flaw, unfortunately. But design flaw nonetheless. Alright, thankfully we can finally retire this empty column. And there we are. I don't have any other games I want to move around. I think everything else is good where it is.